The following is a presentation of the Waynesburg University Sports Network.
Well, just about 48 hours since we've talked to you last here on the Waynesburg University Sports Network. We're back. The Waynesburg women will take on the Geneva Golden Tornadoes tonight at the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse. And in preparation for that, we're getting you ready. My name's Jack Hillgrove. I'm joined up here by Nicholas Callas and Christopher Hulse, getting you set for Waynesburg and Geneva. First, the Waynesburg women have already played 2 games. The Waynesburg men have already played 1 game. Both teams are a combined 0-3. The Waynesburg women losing to Geneva, or rather, hopefully they don't lose to Geneva tonight. Grove City and Westminster. The Waynesburg men losing to Westminster. Again, 0-3 is the combined record for both of these teams to start the season. We're going to break down the start of the season for this first segment. So, Chris, let me start with you. Your overall impression on both, well, I guess we'll start with the women since they have more games under their belt. Your overall impression on the women to start this season.
I mean, it's definitely been a tough start for the women's team so far this season, specifically looking at their turnovers. 21 turnovers per game in their 2 losses so far. It's something that you definitely like to see them clean up. Also, 3-point attempts. They were 3 for 10 against Grove City. Not great, not terrible, but then they had 21 3-point field goal attempts against Westminster on Saturday. They converted 2 of them. So that's an area you really want to see Waynesburg improve. If you're going to point to a bright spot, it has to be Andrea Orlowski, the senior forward for them. She's been a bright spot, averaging over 21 points a game, 12 rebounds per game. But she can't do it alone. She needs help from Brooke Fuller. We saw her get back in the lineup on Saturday. And also the Waynesburg bench, the Lady Jackets, had 2 points off the bench against Westminster. They're going to have to step up in a big way if they're going to improve from this 0-2 start.
Andrea Orlowski to start the season, 22 points and 12 rebounds in the first 2 games. Brooke Fuller, 14 on Saturday. One of the things that, Nick, you mentioned, I heard you say before we went on the air, that they can't waste performances, especially like Andrea Orlowski, averaging 22 to start the season, 26 on Saturday against Westminster. It was a waste of performance. She played very, very well, and she's going to be one of those players that can get to 20-plus points a night for Waynesburg, and they just have to capitalize on those situations and be able to support her enough to rally around her and get a W.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a team right now that has 9 players on the roster, so it's not a depth-filled roster. They've just got to start getting breakout performances from some of the underclassmen. Some of the underclassmen need to start getting that experience, learning from mistakes, make adjustments, and help out the upperclassmen. But also, Elena McDermott didn't finish with the top 3 scores in either game that Waynesburg has played so far, and she's one of the seniors. So if she gets some consistency and she complements Andrea Orlowski, Brooke Fuller gets going a little bit more as well, and then some of these freshmen come along and they put together good performances, I think Waynesburg will have a better opportunity to win games as the season continues to progress.
Yeah, one of the things that excited me coming into this season was the emergence of Abigail Green. She played in the first 2 games on the season, averaging 6.5 points and 6.5 rebounds per game. Last year, and she's a junior, first-year member on the team. She played in high school. And I thought a lot of times last year that Brooke Fuller was not by herself, so to speak, but the only inside threat for the Jackets. Zoe Smith was on the team to start the season. She ended up leaving the team, and now Brooke Fuller has a companion, so to speak, down low. Abigail Green averaging 6.5 points, 6.5 rebounds to start the season. Some other newcomers, Marley Wolf, a freshman from Riverside, Pennsylvania, 5.5 points, 2.5 rebounds per game. Avery Robinson, 1.5 to start this season. Casey Castrol coming back into the fold after missing the first game. She had 3 points on Saturday. And I mentioned Avery Robinson already. That's pretty much it when it comes to the newcomers. It's really not a roster with a lot of players. You mentioned that with depth. Anika Dansby, 7.5 points per game. She's coming back this year. And that was another one, too, that kind of came on strong last year. Freshman point guard. Both teams, we'll talk about the men having freshman point guards last year. Ryan Felberg for the men and Anika Dansby for the women. Chris, what are some of the things you think as far as Anika's game goes, how important she is to be able to take it to the next level and facilitate the offense?
I mean, yeah, Anika Dansby is extremely important. You think she's undersized, like 5'4", as a point guard. Last year as a freshman, though, she wasn't afraid to get inside and sort of help out. She is capable of pulling down rebounds just as much as she is of dishing the ball off to her teammates. So I think she's a really important part of the Waynesburg offense. And yeah, they are a much better team when Anika Dansby is out there on the floor because she's able to move the ball to Orlowski. She's able to get it down low to Fuller. I think the team is at its best when the offense is running through her. And she hasn't been off to the best start. She struggled a bit in the game against Grove City, a lot of turnovers, but that wasn't just her. That's been a struggle for the whole team, as I mentioned.
Yeah, 34% from the field to start the season for the Waynesburg women. Out-rebound, the rebound margin minus 13.5. And that was something when we talk about the men. They got destroyed on the boards by Westminster on Saturday. So the women minus 13.5 in the rebound margin. The turnover margin, not that bad, minus 3. They're stealing it 7.5 times per game, 2.5 blocks per game. And the three-point percentage, this is a glaring number and needs to improve. 16% from beyond the arc from 3. And Anika Dansby, who Chris just talked about, proved last year, Nick, that she can make some of those knockdown shots, and Casey Castro can as well. So hopefully, with Casey back into the lineup again for the second time tonight, they can grow on that 16% number because it's not good.
No, and I think too, just the more that they shoot and the more that they get in that rhythm, moving the ball and then executing the shots, then I think that they'll do better. But I know for a fact, I've seen Anika Dansby shoot in practice. She is a really good shooter. Like, she's a good guard. And as Chris said, her on the team makes the team better. So I agree with that for certain. It's just as simple as that. The numbers got to get better. However, that will happen, though. It's up to whatever adjustments that the team makes. But I do believe the potential is there. Castrol and Dansby, they start making threes. They start getting into that rhythm. The ball gets moved more. Space gets created for those two players, along with Orlowski scoring up above 20 and Brooke Fuller getting inside, making all those inside shots. They'll be fine. I see improvement coming.
Yeah, you'll sit down with Sam Jones at halftime during the halftime show, so be sure to stick around for that. But now we shift to the men's team, and we'll predict later on in the show before we take it to Riley and Adam. We'll predict the women's game tonight, but the men. 81-52 final score on Saturday against the Westminster Titans. Isaiah Alonso had 20 points, really not missing a beat from last year. Shot at 7 for 16 from the field, had 6 rebounds, but he was it. The next highest score for the Waynesburg men on Saturday was Ryan Feldberg and freshman Jansen Knotts. They had 5 points. So there's a glaring issue to start this season, so to speak, with Isaiah Alonso being able to score and not getting a lot of help. But I also think, Chris, Westminster played 2 games coming into that game. No matter the talent differential, and I said this, Nick and I were on the call, no matter the talent differential between two teams, if you are playing a team that's played twice and you haven't played yet, especially with a new roster, and a brand new roster almost for the Waynesburg men, it's a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And, I think Waynesburg had a good start. They led by 6 early in that first half, but Westminster was able to break them down. Like you said, they've played 2 games. They have their legs going. And that full court press that they were running, I think by the end of the first half, you saw that it wore Waynesburg down. At one point, the Westminster Titans went on a 40-10 run. And like you said, Alonso didn't miss a beat, came out with 20 points. Matt Popek missed almost all of last season with injury. He came back and he struggled. He shot 2 for 10. Waynesburg as a team shot 30%. That's not going to continue. Westminster, arguably the favorite, I think, to win the PAC title this year. So it's not a huge surprise that with games under their belt, they were able to come out and beat Waynesburg. I think Waynesburg, this loss, while it looks ugly on paper, it's an important step, shaking off the rust as they get ready to play some more teams around the PAC.
Yeah, 13 turnovers for the men on Saturday. They shot at 10 for 12 from the charity stripe. Isaiah Alonso was 5 for 5 from the free throw line. Your thoughts on the men's team? You and I called the game.
Yeah.
You analyzing it from the associates' perspective in the first half and then play-by-play the second half. What were your takeaways?
Well, first of all, Isaiah Alonso's 20 points led all scorers. So, that's pretty impressive. Unfortunate that Waynesburg lost with a performance like that. But then again, it's got to be more of the team scoring. It can't just be Isaiah Alonso. That's been proven on both the men's team and the women's team through the first few games of the season. But I think that it's another one of those things where you guys said the underclassmen, they haven't really mended together quite well yet. I thought some shots were forced by some of the freshmen, which led to misses, which led to turnovers, and then Westminster got to score. But even given that, Westminster went on a 23-6 run at the end of the first half to really break away from Waynesburg. I think it had something to do with the full court press, as Chris said, but whatever happened, that's the statistic that I think separates that game. Because if that 23-6 run doesn't happen, I think Waynesburg keeps that game much closer, and they very well might win. But that breakdown, the last 10 minutes of the first half, that breakdown that happened, that run that Westminster went on, that caused the lead to expand for Westminster, and I think that ultimately caused Waynesburg to lose the game.
Yeah, the Lady Jays 0-2 to start the season, the men 0-1. The Lady Jays is the game we're previewing, but the men take on Geneva in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania tonight, and we're going to preview and predict that game next here on the Waynesburg University Sports Network. Adam Morganti and Riley Holsinger will be on the call tonight for the Waynesburg women's game against the Geneva Lady Golden Tornadoes, which we are airing right here on the Waynesburg University Sports Network. But the men also play the Geneva Golden Tornadoes tonight. That game is in Beaver Falls. I'm Jack Hillgrove, Chris Hulse, Nicholas Callas. We're going to preview it for you. Geneva, a 68-66 loss to St. Vincent to start the season. St. Vincent, one of the better teams within the last 5-10 years in the PAC, and they gave them a little bit of a run for their money. Geneva's 0-1 to start the season like the Waynesburg men are, but on paper, you got to be a little bit concerned if you're the Waynesburg men because Waynesburg lost pretty bad to a team in Westminster. Geneva played a good team like Waynesburg did, and St. Vincent only lost by 2.
Yeah, and last year, this was a pretty good matchup between the two teams. They split the season series. Both games extremely close, decided by 4 points or fewer. But some of Waynesburg's top performers from those games are no longer here. Cam Ald, Frank Bozovic, Brennan Smith, these were all guys who scored in double figures against Geneva last year. They're no longer on the team. And like you said, Geneva, with their opening loss to St. Vincent, they kept it close, though. And for Waynesburg, a guy you want to keep an eye on, A.J. Stroop, the center for the Golden Tornadoes. He's 6'8". He pulled in double-digit rebounds in the loss against St. Vincent. And Waynesburg allowed 19 offensive rebounds to Westminster. They gave up a lot of second-chance opportunities to the Titans on Saturday. That's something they are going to have to clean up if they want to beat Geneva tonight.
Yeah, Waynesburg out-rebounded by Westminster by 30 or 20. I think it was a 50-30. Yeah, so out-rebounded by 20. Geneva only out-rebounded by St. Vincent by 9. And St. Vincent has a guy named Shamar Bennett who had 19 points and 13 rebounds and is arguably the best forward in the PAC. Nick, what are you expecting out of this Waynesburg men matchup tonight against Geneva?
Honestly, they've got to contain the inside with all of these tall players. I think Isaiah Alonso's got to be in there and helping out on the interior. But I'm looking for Ryan Felberg, too, to kind of step into his element, not only as a guard on offense, but also on defense. He had a block or two in the game that I recall, and he's gotten a lot bigger. So I look for him to play more of a defensive role in this game and more throughout this season than he did last season. But really, it's just about, even though you're going up against a team that has some stronger guys, just work on the routine, get in sync, and just practice on working with the players that you have and put together a good performance. Stay strong like they did against Westminster, but don't let the game get carried away. Don't let Geneva go on a run, and I think that they'll compete.
Yeah, and I think something that it's important to point out, Geneva were in foul trouble for much of their game against St. Vincent. 24 team fouls. They allowed the Bearcats to shoot 30 free throws.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, Waynesburg, they only got to the line 12 times against Westminster, but they shot 83% from the charity stripe when they were there. If Waynesburg can get Geneva into foul trouble again, and they can continue to be as efficient from the free throw line, those are a lot more points that Waynesburg are going to have in their column, and that could go a long way.
Yeah, Waynesburg started out last season 0-12. Their first win was at Geneva last year, the birthplace of college basketball, so to speak. and they came down the second half in that game. Bruce Davidson and I were on the call for it for Green Sports, and the second half they were world beaters. They couldn't miss, and a guy like you mentioned, Ryan Felberg, who down the stretch last year became one of the really good point guards in the PAC. And there were some struggles in his game on Saturday, but he did have 5 assists. He assisted on 5 baskets for Waynesburg, led the team, so hopefully he can build on that as the starting point guard. And Matt Popek, you would hope that his game goes up, because his ceiling is as high as perhaps being the best player in the PAC. We've seen that from him as a freshman and a sophomore. So hopefully, in only the 21 minutes that he saw on Saturday, hopefully those minutes can go up, and hopefully those points can go up too. All right, real quick before we take a break, let's predict this game. Callas, I'll start with you. Who do you like, Geneva or Waynesburg?
I'll take Waynesburg on this one, just because I think after they played one game, I think that they'll get back in sync. And I think that as long as they don't let Geneva get carried away, like I said before, I think that they'll compete, and I'll favor them in this one. I think Waynesburg will beat Geneva tonight.
I like Waynesburg as well. I think, though, they're going to have to be smarter with their shot selection than they were against Westminster. But, I like Waynesburg a lot in this one. Isaiah Alonso, I'm expecting a big game from him, as well as Ryan Felberg. Yeah,
that matchup will be important inside. Isaiah Alonso going up against the 6'8" center from the Geneva College Golden Tornadoes. So they didn't shoot it very well. Waynesburg didn't. They shot 32%, or rather 30% from the field against Westminster, but Geneva only shot at 32% against St. Vincent. And while that was only a 2-point margin, Geneva only turned it over 12 times. Waynesburg turned it over against Westminster 13 times. So I expect a game where there are minimal mistakes from either team. If there was a point spread on it, I would take the under. I think this is going to be a game heavily favored in the half court. Head coach Tim Fusina likes to favor that half court defense and stress, getting turnovers in the half court. I think I'm going to agree with you guys. I think the Waynesburg men carry over that good momentum from last year. Isaiah Alonso and Ryan Felberg down the stretch played very, very well against Geneva last season on the road when they picked up their first win in the 2019-2020 campaign. And I think I'm going to take the Waynesburg Yellow Jackets by 6 to 10 points. I think it's going to be a pretty not dominant victory by any stretch. It might be a little back and forth in the first half, but I think when it's all said and done, you're going to see the second half, especially the latter half of half number 2, and you're going to see and be able to tell that the Waynesburg Yellow Jackets were in control and were the better team. So that's our predictions for the Waynesburg men's game tonight against Geneva College. And remember, Nicholas Callas, who's up here right now, has a halftime interview with women's basketball head coach Sam Jones. You won't want to miss that. Adam Morganti and Riley Holsinger are on the call. We'll send that to them in about 5 or so minutes. But when we come back, it's the game that you're getting ready to watch. We're going to preview and predict the Waynesburg women against the Geneva College women right here on the Waynesburg University Sports Network. Welcome back to the Waynesburg University Sports Network pregame show. My name's Jack Hillgrove. The first time you will see the Waynesburg women in action tonight on the Waynesburg University Sports Network is coming up in about 5 or so minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, give or take. The Waynesburg women take on the Geneva College Lady Golden Tornadoes. Jack Hillgrove, Chris Hulse, Nicholas Callas, we're here to break it down. First, let's preview before we predict. The Waynesburg women, as we said in the open, are 0-2. Unlike the men who are 0-1, they've played one fewer game. What are some of the storylines? Chris, I'll start with you. Some of the storylines heading into this game, some stuff that sticks out to you as far as this matchup that Waynesburg has against Geneva College.
Well, I go back to last season again. Waynesburg pretty much dominated against Geneva in their 2 matchups last season. And unlike the Waynesburg men, the focal points for the team in those games are still here. Andrea Orlowski, 23 points per game in the 2 matchups last season. Brooke Fuller, just a hair under 18 points per game in those 2. Orlowski also had 2 double-doubles, 1 for each game. So I think if she's continuing to have the hot start that she has this season, continuing to dominate against Geneva like she did last season, that's something I'm looking for from the Waynesburg perspective.
Yeah, Geneva is 1-1 on the young 2021 campaign, an 85-61 win over new member Franciscan University out of Steubenville, Ohio. So a good win there, and a not so good performance on Saturday against St. Vincent College at home. 95-61, they were losers there. So Geneva's 1-1, one more win than Waynesburg has. Nick, what are some stuff sticking out to you for this game tonight?
Well, right now I see Andrea Orlowski being a threat no matter what. I think she's a big storyline because, 18 points against Grove City, which is a dominant team. Westminster, good team. She scored 26. So I think that her continuing to score and her continuing to be a catalyst for Waynesburg will be important. Now, what's also going to be important is Geneva has 14 rostered players on its team. Waynesburg has 9. So it's going to be a battle of the depth. Which team is going to be able to cycle through a rotation, keep stamina up, play through the entire 40-minute game, and earn a win. Waynesburg's a little bit more disadvantaged, though, because you got 5 on the court, but 9 rostered. So that leaves 4 bench players who cycle in and have to perform at a level where they want to win the game.
One of the things that sticks out to me tonight, and again, Brooke Fuller missed game number 1, back for game number 2, had a good performance, 14 points on Saturday against Westminster. Her season high last year, as I look, was 27 points against St. Vincent, and that was a pretty good game. But one of her more efficient and better performances, if you ask me, and the only reason why I say this is because I was there and I watched it, was against Geneva College. She had 19 points. She hauled in 9 boards, and she shot just around 50%, or just over 50%, 8 of 15 from the field. So she was very, very good inside against Geneva last year. I look for her, based off of the momentum that she established in game 1 against Westminster, to carry that over in friendly confines tonight in the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse and have a big game against Geneva tonight. And hopefully Andrea Orlowski can get going like we've seen to start this season, and maybe even Casey Castrol knocking down a couple of threes on the wing like we know that she can as well. All right, that's our storylines heading into this one. It's time we take our picks. Chris will go first. My friend, Geneva or Waynesburg? Do the Lady Jays get in the win column in game number 3?
All right, so I'm not going to try and overthink this. Waynesburg is 0-2, but who have they lost to? Grove City, the defending PAC champions, and Westminster, who were 3rd in the PAC last season. Right now, they sit in first place with a record of 2-0. Geneva is not as good as those teams. Waynesburg, they're getting Brooke Fuller and Casey Castrol readjusted. They're getting them in the rotation. I like the Lady Jays to win their first game of the season tonight.
There it is. Chris Hulse takes Waynesburg. Nicholas Callas, do you agree?
I don't. I think Geneva's going to pull this game out. I understand that they lost to some tough opponents in their first couple games, but Andrea Orlowski was pretty much her show throughout both of those games. I just don't think that with Geneva's weapons that it has, I don't think that Waynesburg is going to be able to match that. And by the way, I think Geneva's win already against Franciscan proves that they could beat Franciscan and they could beat a team like Waynesburg that has a lack of depth and a lack of experience so far this season.
Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. I'm going to hit you with a not so fast, my friend. Look, 93-76 was the margin of victory last year for the Waynesburg women against Geneva College, and that game was on the road. I already talked about Brooke Fuller's ability to score the basketball. I think she continues to do that tonight. 4 players were in double figures last year in this game. Andrea Orlowski, 21. Brooke had 19. Casey Castrol had 14. And Allie Delaney had 14. 3 of those 4 are back. I think those 3 play a huge factor into tonight's game. And the one bugaboo that the Waynesburg women had last year against Geneva College was they had 24 turnovers. I think they clean up those turnovers, and I think maybe not as 17 points as dominant as it was last year, but don't be surprised if Waynesburg not only wins this game, but wins it by double digits. Well, that's all for Nicholas and for Chris. My name's Jack. We're going to take one more break, and when we come back, I'll throw it down to our 2 announcers that'll have the action tonight, Riley Holsinger and Adam Morganti.